Thank you. Before we carry on with the presentation, I have to speak a little bit louder because we have only two mics, so it catches up. So don't think that I'm crazy. I am, but that's okay. And I asked Phil to do the same. So that's a little bit on the logistics side. Well, today panel is about something that we are all frequently hear a lot about. Don't necessarily know what to do with it or how to address this from either clinical perspective, from organizational perspective, from the participant perspective. And that main talk is navigating return to work. And how do we do this from the client's perspective? How do we do this from organizational and clinician's perspective? And what are the gaps? What can we do to change this? What is working? What is not working? So I'm going to be asking questions. Lynne is going to speak from the clinical perspective. Al will speak from the organizational and clinical perspective as well. Phil will speak from the participant's perspective, who went through the journey of getting better and then returning to work. Now, I would also encourage you to ask questions as we go. So I would like this to be interactive. As Al said, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a team to make it work. And as we are going to be progressing with this discussion, I would like you to wear your hat if you are a clinician or if you're a referral source, meaning individuals who are working with participants to help them to get better and navigating them through different services that they need. Ask yourself, what are the things that are working? What are the gaps when it comes to assisting individuals in getting better? And not only gaps from your own hat perspective, but from the perspective of others. If you're a clinician, think from the organizational perspective. If you're an organization, think from the clinician's perspective, and vice versa. So I encourage you to do that. Now, one thing that you need to know about me, and I have many witnesses who can confirm this, like if people don't talk, I simply appoint them to talk.
That's how I got here. Not by choice.
And the reason for that is to get the discussion going, because it will help all of us to get better, to have a better approach, to have a better resources, and so forth, so forth. So the sooner you volunteer, the better off you are. So I would like to, any questions before we move forward?
Well, we better start talking straight away, I think.
Phil, I need to mark him, okay.
Another volunteer.
Another volunteer. So I would like to introduce to my left, it's Lynne Wisemann, and Lynne has been a clinician with Diversified Rehab. I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself.
Yes. So I think it was said yesterday that when practicum students come here, they never leave. So I'm one of those. My background is in behaviorism, so I was a behavior consultant for a really long time. And then, I don't know, the universe kind of plops you where you're meant to be sometimes. I came here by an interesting series of events and never left. I absolutely love what I do, so plan to be here for a while.
To my right is
Maybe.
Smitton, Dr. Alan Smitton. Again, Alan, feel free to introduce yourself.
Good morning. Alan Smitton. I just recently retired from the RCMP in E Division as a lead psychologist, and that was in December. It was very interesting in the work that we did at E Division. We created the Proactive Employee Health Support Unit, which was the first of its kind in Canada. And when I left, I understand that Ottawa was showing some interest in it, in the work that we've done and how we roll things out. And part of that, which is really interesting, and there's some controversy going on within the division right now, but we also put together the peer support response team. So we have trained members. It's an 8-day program, and I'll tell you, to get 8 days of training through the RCMP and to have them pay for that was quite astounding. But In that 8 days, members are trained on a number of different levels to intervene in critical incidences and potential suicide and apprehension of members and the whole process. And the idea of this is that when a major incident happens, of course that can be a very wide spectrum, what happens is the members go out and handle all of the interactions with the affected members and do the critical incident stress debriefs and handle all that rather than getting psychologists to do it. Now the interesting thing about this too is the, so we were able to have subject members be a part of our debriefs. We were approved to do that, so that was a huge step forward, I gotta tell you. We worked very hard with, of course, MPF2 to put all that together. And I'm very proud that Rhonda and I worked and got that off the ground. And interestingly enough, too, part of the proactive employee health support unit was to try to get members back to work. And in my process, I was very much aware of the Edmonton program that they had. And at that time, I was working...
So you're referring to reintegration?
Reintegration, yes. I found out through that, actually through the tragedy of Constable John Davidson at Abbotsford. I was working with Abbotsford at the time. And I saw them come in and what they did, and I thought, well, I want to bring this to the RCMP, which we kind of did. I think we were a little bit ahead of the curve, and maybe I can talk a little bit about how that happened. But so Ron and I were working to bring that with Proactive Employee Health Support Unit when the reintegration came through, and then it kind of rolled over from there. So it's been a very interesting path and journey that I've done.
Thank you for now.
Thank you.
Phil, how about you introduce yourself?
I'm Phil. I'm an alumni of this program. I was here May 2023. It was a huge part of my return to work. I've been with the RCMP since 2000. I lived a true Mountie adventure by getting posted in 5 different divisions, including federal policing to northern policing, and I always seemed to pick very violent detachments, which kind of brought me to this program, believe it or not. I'm currently working in Surrey Detachment in training and development, and I'm also a reintegration facilitator. You spoke real quick about that. It's something I've been doing for about a decade, and a few years ago it became a funded program and recognized program, which is huge for the members. And yeah, I created my own reintegration program, a little bit of a success story. I'm back at work, enjoying life again. And the most important part, I'm a father of 2 teenagers. Slide that in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil. So one thing that you may not know about me, that before I dive into mental health, when it comes to working with first responders, part of my previous life was working specifically in the return to work area. So the return to work area was bread and butter of what I have been doing. And I have been doing this on a number of levels, assisting individuals to return to work by putting together appropriate treatment plans and then facilitating the team, helping individuals to get back on their feet and return to work. And I work with psychologists, family physicians, occupational therapists, you name it, whoever was needed on that team will make that happen. And then I progressed to disability management. And disability management was mainly working with employers and helping them to manage disability claims. I had that privilege to work with small organizations and very large organizations. And through that journey of observing what was really happening, I noticed one thing, one common thing, that regardless how big you are as an employer, the challenges and successes are very similar. Yeah. So I pose myself a question: is there an opportunity? Is there an opportunity for us to close the gap, whatever those or gaps were, and how to make that happen? And one of the common things I realized was bringing a team together, and by trying to really understand which team member brings to the table, and involve a very important participant in the journey of return to work. Guess who that was? The client. The client. Through my number of presentations and workshops that I run for HR professionals and organizations, for whatever reason, they kept forgetting about the client being part of the journey of return to work. They usually had the tendency to organize everything, or sometimes don't even organize for the client to return to work. And sometimes that was happening successfully, sometimes it was happening in the opposite way. So I ask myself a question: what can we do to change that? And so, well, how about we start with having two important people when it comes to return to work, being involved from day one of the injury or whatever the client experienced that limited them from returning to work. And that was asking them, what can you do currently, given where you are at when it comes to return to work? And then going to the direct supervisor, not to the top manager, and asking what is available for this individual, assuming that this individual has the following limitations and abilities. And so what I did, I took the power from the medical team, and I went right into treatment team, and I went right to those who are impacted the most, the individual and their direct supervisors, because they need those boots on the ground. And then I started assembling a team around that to help this individual to return to work. And as we started progressing this way, I also realized that we started removing silos. Because now we were communicating together. We had, for example, a psychologist, physiotherapist, a supervisor and a client, of course protecting clients' confidentiality and limits on that. And we started moving towards that together. Now, what I also realized through the journey, now the outcome, which is frequently a time of returning to work, it happened so organically. All we had to do at the end of the day was just to assemble a return to work plan in a written format, outlining all the things that needs to be in place for that individual and the employer to have this employee back to work, support, breaks, and how we're going to manage that, and make sure that we have enough flexibility to make that happen. And from that angle, I also realized that I became almost like a facilitator in terms of navigating through those different components and elements of the return to work, which helped me to really be in touch with that employee's needs and the organizational needs in their return to work journey. So this is so is it possible? Yes. Is it working? Yes. But it takes some time and energy to make that happen, and you need to know who your team is and what are the silos, meaning gaps in the system that are actually preventing us from helping individuals to return to work. Now, I have tons of stories. One story I have that there was a large organization, employee was missing from work for 3 months, and nobody knew that actually the employee was sick. Or employee finished a program and it took them 2 or 3 months for the referral source or the employer to get in touch with the employee to get them back to work. So all of those, I recognize them challenges or gaps frequently put us in a position that when we work so hard to help this individual to get back on their feet, and we create those gaps, whether it's time, from the time perspective or lack of connection, it may so easily take that client back where they were. Okay. That's a little bit overview of the return to work process. I would like start our discussions from the clinical perspective. What are some challenges, Lynne, that you as a clinician encounter when it comes to assisting individuals in overcoming what they are struggling with and then getting them ready for return to work, so the clinical perspective.
Yeah, it's a big topic, so I don't know if I can cover all the points at the beginning, but I'm sure they'll come up as we go along. This tends to be one of those more triggering topics in the program, and so we talk about it early. It's really important that it doesn't become the elephant in the room, and we really bring it up so that we're talking about it from a lot of different aspects, because if we don't, it's kind of that thing that just festers and keeps really stagnating the healing process, we find. So that's a big part of it, is we need to bring it up sooner than later, and that would be the same for, planning the return to work would be sooner than later. There's a lot of challenges around ability to go to work, back to work, and desire to go back to work, and so it's sort of running that fine line. From a clinical, we really need to stay in our clinical lane. And so that really looks like, processing the trauma, looking at, well, what is the why? What do you need? How can we best support you? And when I say support, it's really empowering. So that's very much the way I see my role, is very much empowering the participants to speak what they need in that moment. But there's a lot of challenges that come with these. It sounds really, really good when we sort of lay it out on paper. We say, well, these are the steps, these are the challenges, but there's a lot of complexity in it. And every client comes in with a really different story, really different experiences. One of the biggest challenges I find is moral injury. When moral injury comes into the equation, and that can look a lot of different ways. So there is different kinds of moral injury. So sometimes it's, something a client has done in their role, and it might be something they weren't able to do in their role. But when we look at those more betrayal-based moral injuries, do I feel supported by the people around me? That's where it becomes a big challenge. And so then we're kind of doing two streams. So we're healing the trauma aspect from the PTSD perspective, but there's also this moral injury. And sometimes that takes precedent in the healing journey, and it's complex.
And then if you include the component of return to work,
Yes.
from
Yes.
a clinical perspective, what do you think, from your own experience as a clinician, what was your level of understanding through your studies when it comes to return to work and how to navigate what you need to know, what would be good to know about return to work journey or principles?
Yeah, this was not part of my clinical training. There's no course in your master's program on return to work and all of these different things. So it's a huge learning curve. And I found it's just been a lot of exposure to it, just myself. And as clinicians, that we get kind of more versed in it, more used to it, more understanding of it. But there's also a lot of different organizations we work with and different referral sources. So, there's RCMP and there's the WCB aspect and, firefighters organizations, and there's just so much to know. And so that is a really big, stumbling block when you're a new clinician, is I just don't know how to support this because I don't know what's available to you. And so really, as much as I need to know a lot of these details, it's really empowering the client to ask the question. What is available to me for support? What things can I access to help me to have a successful return to work? That's been a huge learning curve and a huge challenge.
Is the information from the, of course, we have more than one client. We have an actual participant who comes and tries to get better, but we also have the referral source, who also is our client, and navigating through that, knowing about a specific organization. Is this important for you as a clinician?
Incredibly important.
So give me some of the examples. For example, what thing you think would be good to know from the employers or from the referral source?
Yeah. Some of it is knowing what the support options are. I'd say that's probably the biggest one is I need to know, what are some of the things that that are available that we can even talk about from a support perspective outside of, the meetings and some of those spots. What are some of the things that we can even discuss that would really, really help that successful return to work? You have to be really careful. I don't want to start throwing out different ideas because it's an ever evolving. All these organizations are very ever evolving and changing, and so we really need to again go back to empowering to ask the questions, to know what's available. One other thing I want to add to that though is that certain things like reintegration. I'm a huge advocate for reintegration program, and there's a lot of learning that comes out of those sorts of trainings from a clinical perspective. I learned a lot, and so that's just one avenue that's really helped understand, and I can better sort of buffer those conversations from a clinical perspective and really help the client gain the tools and the strategies that are needed to move forward in their healing journey.
Thank you. On that topic, I really think that for us, majority of our clinicians went through reintegration training. It closes that gap for us in terms of we can only help individuals on the treatment side right here, but when you're going back to work, we don't have the boots on the ground there. Yeah? So, and clients are in our program are still with us for about 6 weeks post-treatment, and when we are facilitating that journey for them, knowing that there's someone available within the organization that can process some of those things with our support for those individuals, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
So I would like to now turn my attention to Alan and ask him from the organizational perspective. Yeah, from organizational perspective, you have the privilege to be a clinician, a treatment individual, and also work for an organization. Well, from an organizational perspective, what are the missing pieces when you are getting from clinicians? Yeah, and what is important for organization to hear, to know from clinicians when it comes to supporting individuals in a return to work journey.
Great. We got 2 hours?
Let me define
I mean, thankfully I have 3 wonderful occupational health nurses behind me, or in front of me, who could speak better to it than I can. But in my experience, what happens is that the people that are doing the treatment, typically psychologists, sometimes medical doctors, but I would say largely psychologists, they're not aware of the organizational structure and what needs to happen. I've got a kind of a funny story. Rhonda and I were working on getting a member back to work, and who had been off for quite a while. So I was in touch with the psychologist, and we kind of floated things back and forth. And the psychologist said, yes, they're ready to kind of start a reintegration program. So we were on the phone to the member, and they said, well, what I'd like to do is just I just want to go out in a marked car and listen to the radio. I just want to drive for maybe an hour, and we thought, well, that's a brilliant idea. So we go then to our OIC, who is Superintendent Bruce Singer, and Bruce lit up and said, yeah, of course, why can't that happen? So we thought, okay, well, we'll get this rolling, and I think about a couple hours later, so Bruce had gone upstairs for a senior management meeting. I guess that came out. Bruce comes down, he says, that's a great idea, but what I just found out, we come up against liability. That a member cannot go out in a police car without their intervention options. Well, who knew? Right? So then, of course, the ball got rolling, and I think the integration people were here, certainly in the Southeast districts. This is where it happened, and we got this member set up, and so she could qualify. And anyway, it went forward. But things like that what does it take for somebody who goes off? And a lot of members don't know that we have this classification system. that they're on operational O2, so they can do everything and anything, and then they get moved, often as they come over to the health services coordinator. I think that's still right, right? Come over to the health services coordinator, then they lose that status, become an O4, or so administrative duties only, and then it could go as far as becoming an O6 and unfit for, and you can speak to this, unfit for any kind of role in policing. So it's like, well, how, the clinicians don't often know that this happens, and then what has to happen in order to get that back. And within the RCMP, the signing authorities to make that happen are the divisional doctors. They have to sign the form saying that a member can move from an 06 to an 04 or back to an 03, which is some operational work, or back to an 02. So a whole process has to go through, and they have to have, the doctors have to have the right documentation, if you will, so they can feel assured that the member is safe in order to go forward. With it. Aw, that's it.
That's on camera too.
See, no.
It's an icebreaker.
The support you get at this program is unbelievable.
Whatever it takes.
I'm speechless.
Weird at all. I'm sorry.
I was where was I? So anyway, this whole process, the clinicians don't know about this. And the other thing that happens too is they think, a lot of clinicians think that the RCMP is a big machine. So if we have member that A in this detachment and they're not getting along with their line supervisors, wherever, we can just move them to somewhere else. And of course that doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. And the other thing that a lot of clinicians don't know is that if you take somebody and put them off the road, or ODS, and they slip from an 02 to an 04, and they're, say, in a 5-person detachment, guess what happens? And now we've got a domino effect on those other 4 members that have to pick up the slack and then try to get reservists in. And this comes back to how do we get these folks back to work? I know of one case where that is true, and I think that member who is ODS probably should have been here probably a few months ago. But again, clinicians don't know this. And I know we did an open house, this is probably about 10 years ago, for clinicians. We hosted it, health services, and it was packed. And that way they can ask the questions, we can talk about our process, what is needed, what documentation is needed, how to support the member, how to support the member so they don't languish, because that can happen. I mean, you know, the white elephant is in the RCMP, they have unlimited sick leave. So it's easy, especially for medical doctors, to sign the medical forms, and then that kind of just slides off into the sunset. And before you know it, 1 year turns into 18 months, turns into 2 years, into 3 years. And then we've lost that traction. And we all know that the longer somebody's off work, the harder it is to get them back to work. And thank goodness for that reintegration program now that can help people, especially if they've been off for a period of time, just to come back and say, oh, maybe you should try on the duty belt. You know, you might look like you put on a few pounds, or a new uniform. Sure. Well, you know what happens, right? You're off work, you know what else? You need a new pants, new uniform, so it helps people get back. But again, clinicians, and especially medical doctors, don't understand how the infrastructure works. And you can't just move a member from, well, like Kelowna. Kelowna's a big place, so why not move them to Penticton? If you're in Penticton, I don't want to work in Penticton anymore. I want to work in Oliver, because it's closer to my home, and it's too much in Penticton. It doesn't work that way, and it just causes complications. Certainly for return to work, it makes complications for the occupational health nurses, and it sure does for the DMAs to help them get back to work. So.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions on that?
Alan, are you gonna do another one of those open houses?
Sorry?
I said, Alan, are you gonna create another one of those open houses?
You're retired.
Yeah, I'm retired.
Yeah,
Did I say that? Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I do have a question. So, if there was so many people there, why doesn't the RCMP have those opportunities again for clinicians? Do you know those open houses?
I'm gonna take that back because I think it's a
So
fabulous idea.
the problem that we have, quite honestly, there's two problems, and I also want to give you this. I was talking to Al about this. OPP has 58 serving members. 5,800 serving members. 1,500 serving members. They have a huge infrastructure to support that. Here in BC, and including M Division, which is Yukon, we have over 8,000 members. And we cannot attract and keep registered psychologists. That's a travesty. And that's unexcusable. And this is why a lot of this happens. Because the nurses cannot keep fielding these kinds of concerns with clinicians. They don't have the time. And that's what the psychologist division, the psychologists are for. So there should be at least 4 for E division.
You were.
No, I completely agree. So I'm the admin and personnel officer for Nova Scotia. We 4 years ago went through the mass casualty, and for those of us that lived the actual experience itself, the 4 years following that were more traumatic and profoundly detrimental than the actual incident itself. And so we have learned a great deal about wellness, employee impact, family impact since then. And we in the organization, we're like, oh yeah, the RCMP is so good, look what we can do. We have all these processes, which we do, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. And so I'm a huge proponent, having gone through Edgewood last year myself, and now my reason for living is to change this organization. And so the only way that we can do that is with all of your support, and for all of for these conversations to get to people like me who can actually take that and into headquarters and go, this is ridiculous, why are we doing this to our people? But because every division is, yes, we're all one big organization, but every division is different, has different nuances. EDIV being the biggest one. There are different ways that things are done, but that's not a good thing. It can be a good thing, but not necessarily a good thing. So if there's best practices across the country, then you can be sure that I want to hear about them, and I will drive them right into headquarters and stick my foot in the door, because I'm not shy anymore and have no more filter. So all of these good things, if there's issues that I can help bring forward at the national level, I'm happy to do that. And I think the educating the clinicians piece is brilliant, and I've never thought about that, and guess what I'm going to do as soon as I get home. And we'll push that across the country.
Huge payoff.
Huge payoff, and it just makes perfect sense. Why would we, from an operational perspective, be beating our head against the wall? Because organizationally, we have duties that we need to do from an organizational perspective to get somebody back to work, and the idea is that they would go through the reintegration program, go through a graduated return to work in their substantive role. Once they get signed off that they're healthy and good to go, the health services officer signs them off, and then we can have a conversation about, is this the role for you? Perhaps we can move somewhere else. What does that look like? But to move one person, there's a stream of dominoes to make that move happen. It doesn't happen overnight. And so that's where the conversation needs to happen between the members, their family, the healthcare professional, health services, staffing, and admin and personnel. It's a domino effect. And as big as our organization is, when bad stuff happens, there's no other organization I'd rather work for. But to make change, it's a big engine to get those wheels rolling. But once it does, look out, because there's nothing stopping us. So thank you, Doc, for all that you've done in your career. Thank you for your service.
So I know we talk about our CP, but I have to tell you, this is across the board. Doesn't matter which organization it is, it's a very common thing. Now, if I have my own perspective, and we are here very lucky because there's a number of us who are very background in return to work. And so when we are working with our clinicians, and sometimes we have those conversations where no, that's not, I mean, yeah, you need to understand the return to work. You need to call the referral source and ask them what's available. You need, if possible, go to that supervisor if they allowed you to find out what can we do to help. Because this is getting the conversation going. It removes the silos, it opens the opportunity, and it's like we are after a common goal. So if you are a clinician, pick up the phone. Pick up that phone. Call. If they don't answer, send an email. If they don't answer an email, send a freaking another 10 emails. Yeah? Because you want them to be a part of that team. Huh? And also understand. I think it's also very important to understand what the referral source ability to respond is or are, yeah? Because they may be overwhelmed as well doing their job. So if you can find a way how we can onboard them and understand how they operate and what their this speaks to vulnerability. Yeah? So when you build a team, you need to have that level of vulnerability, and it's okay for them to hear from you. So listen, I need this so I can help that individual. Yeah? You are busy, I am busy, what can we do to work together? And from the referral source, they might be having a caseload that is beyond the level of ability to manage them effectively because they may have so many clients, but find that common ground to learn about their organization, about the structure and the processes, either through the client that you're working, and try to get directly to the referral source, because that's a big thing. And if you haven't taken any courses on a return to work, I strongly encourage you to contact me. I can direct you to one, or we can offer you one, whichever that is. We have that information because it's so powerful to understand the principles of the return to work and how those little pieces fits in the return to work journey. Any questions on that?
I don't have a question, but I have several comments, and I am so happy you are here. Because this is what I'm here for. I am a psychologist who works almost predominantly with RCMP members, and these principles are absolutely the things to do. And I have been doing for years, and yet, because of the organization the way it is, it remains the same. And so to know who to talk to in terms of, look, here's why clinicians aren't being retained, and here's the gaps, and here's how we would like to serve members better, but we have no idea, or we know it should happen, but it's not possible, all these kinds of things. So to go on that level, I think, of even if just clinicians know who are the people to speak to on that organizational level, because with health services, it is a case of they are overburdened, and you can't connect with people, it's not their fault, that you need to, and to even just understand the system, even just that. I mean, I've been doing this for a while now, and I'm still learning, and still it's coming at the expense of members, and that's the piece that is just, so we need to talk.
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that. And we had, Derek and I had this conversation about 5 minutes ago, that because we are so big and because this demand is so big, I know we do have people falling through the cracks, absolutely. And those are the ones that break my heart, because when I was in treatment, I would look around the room and think, you know, I feel so grateful to be here. And there's members sitting on either side of me that have had to wait 2 and 3 years to get into a program like this. And in those 2 and 3 years,
Right.
have attempted suicide 2 and 3 times. What the hell?
It's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. And so, yeah, I'm happy to help in any way, shape, or form I can. I don't care anymore. Put me in front of anybody, it doesn't matter.
and this is how we move the dial.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's already happening, and more of that. Yeah. So thank you.
Can I?
Sorry, I have one more question.
Can I just jump? Can I just jump in here? Because and I think this transcends RCMP, municipal forces, fire, and EHS paramedics. That again, the clinicians sometimes think that when somebody goes back to work, they can go back to administrative roles and stay there, but in fact they can't. Fire people, they want people on the trucks. They have to man the trucks. They don't here in almost everywhere except for Surrey HQ for RCMP, for example, is the only place really for carpet cops or administrative. All other detachments have very, very small openings to accommodate somebody at administrative level, and the funding is often not there long-term to support them. So while it looks, again, and the same with municipal forces, they need boots on the ground. That's what the city is paying for. That's what has to happen. You can't take an operational person and say, you know, for the rest of your career, we're going to allow you to just be an administrator of some kind. It's very hard to do. So again, it's more about if somebody comes to here, right, the idea would be to get them back to where they came from in the shortest amount of time possible, and to help then again the detachment to move forward and get them back on the road or get them back into operational services.
Thank you. Thank you. Other question?
As the NCO here in Kelowna in charge of the wellness program and this reintegration, we have a lot for a detachment our size.
Yes.
We have a huge number that we deal with. One of the things that we feel is it's a total disconnect of the recommendations that come in from the clinical world. Come to us, please. I will happily set up with you guys. Come see the detachment. Come see what we do. What does reintegration to their job mean to you and to us? Because when we see stuff comes in, literally, we've gotten sick notes. Cannot work general duty, but can work any other duties. That's your member saying, I don't want to wear a uniform or work night shifts, but I want you to tell them that. We have to deal with that side of it too. And we get doctors and medical staff who wade, and it's not, I'm not trying to be cruel in the fact that they're not,
We're
for
clueless.
us,
We're clueless in the
you're
beginning.
not giving medical
Yeah.
reasons for why they can't do that.
Yes.
So we can't just say to them, yeah,
Yes.
sure, we will accommodate that. Like Alan is saying, we have a detachment of, we're just going up to 324 now here. We are so short of people this summer because of this kind of thing and the work that goes on in the special events here. We are having more than a dozen overtime people every 24 hours come in from anywhere in the province. We put them up and they work here because we are struggling on the front lines. We do not have jobs that are come on in and do an administrative job, or you can't work nights, or you can't, like those limitations are so hard for us to deal with in an organization where, as Alan says, you gotta be able to go out, drive a car, you've gotta be able to go out and do those sorts of things. So we really want to see them come back. We try very hard. Most of you know Babak, who was here last year and couldn't be here. He works with me. He has the biggest heart and he wants to see everybody back. We do. We want people back to work, but it is such a struggle when they come in with limitations that really don't work in our environment. So it's working with clinicians to understand, okay, if you, and our members sometimes think they're helping themselves when they tell you specific things to tell us. Right? And I get why they're doing it, I really do. But they don't realize the problem they're putting themselves in. One of them was, I can't lift more than 10 kilograms. You're off the road. We don't have a spot for you in Kelowna. And you just sewered yourself in being able to stay here and come back to work. But we don't have people who understand that if you put those limitations down, have that conversation with them and say, do you realize, but every limitation is pulling you further away from being able to go back. And it's difficult. We would love to work.
Yeah, thank you for that. And
Yeah.
you inspire me because we've been doing in-house, we do a lot of training.
Yeah.
We also reach out on a number of occasions to Alan, talk to our clinicians, teach us, to put a presentation for our Kelowna here, or for whoever would like to have that. For the clinicians to understand that, for the clinicians to know how to recommend, what to recommend, based on understanding of the work environment and what's available. So thank you for that. Wow, what an inspiring discussion. Thank you, thank you. I would like to now turn attention to a person who went through the journey of return to work, Phil, and to tell us from the perspective when you left work, when you came to the program, we had a return to work discussion. And I remember I was, I think, trying to facilitate normalizing return to work discussion that will be taking place in the 4th week. And then, how was that for you, talking about return to work and that disconnection from the work environment as well?
A month ago, we had a phone conversation where Derek mentioned to dress really casual, and this is outside. Let's just note that was a huge mistake.
Need a blanket?
I'm good.
Oh, okay.
So
I can give you my jacket.
I'm good. Should have brought pants. When we were here, so Amanda was part of the same program as I was. We were a group of 4, and there was tension in the room. I was not comfortable with discussing the return to work because I knew I wasn't ready. But that wasn't the purpose of. You realize afterwards when you have talks with the clinician, talks with Derek, that was not the purpose of that. It's giving you the tools to properly come back. One of the biggest things I took away from that was you mentioned include your work in the decision process. Let them know what your expectations and what your needs are. I'm in Surrey. I have the luxury of having a lot of administrative positions, and I'm an NCO working in the administrative world, so I was able to pull myself off the road and not be dealing with the general public and everything that comes with that. Able not to supervise anybody on the front line, and in the client services world, I'm okay with where I am. After you leave the program, you still have those 6 weeks to start planning your return to work once you believe you're ready, and that's what happened. Yeah, that's what happened to me. Was continuous talks, and then with the program and my home psychologist, who was involved with this program quite heavily as well, so we can link everything together. The unique part of my return was, and this comes from the Surrey detachment, was I planned everything myself, and I presented to my line officer what I believe would be best for me. And they looked at it and they said, "This is fantastic. No, it's very rare, or no one had done that yet." And these were all tools that I learned through the program, and through, you bring home your binder, you're reviewing everything, multiple talks with my clinician, multiple talks with a lot of the staff that are here that helped out with my return. For me to feel comfortable to go to work and say, this is what I'm looking for. I designed my own GRTW, spoke to my DMA about what disability management advisor, spoke with my occupational nurse about what would be best for me. And everyone agreed. I thought I was going to get resistance on everybody's like, this is looking great. I'm not expecting to be treated like royalty or go back on the road day one. Everything was presented in a reasonable fashion, and it was adopted on first instance. And I was able to have the flexibility that when I did my return to work, that a little simple thing, like initially I wanted to work non-consecutive days. Right? They said, my first week was 20 hours. I was like, yeah, I'll work non-consecutive days. That was a horrible idea for me. I'd sit at home between the 2 days and go, people are waiting for responses from me. I started planning and organizing major projects. And I would sit at home doing nothing. So, no, let's change it. And the change was just a conversation. Boom, I changed it, resubmitted, and I just got, okay, perfect, move on. So the least resistance somebody can get in the return is good.
Were there anything you would improve when it comes to your return to work? Was there anything?
I had a success story. Like my line officer, like the support was I was like, whoa, okay. You're always, as a police officer, you're always expecting resistance every step of the way, and there wasn't for me. So no. But again, for my personal story, it's here. I was reluctant, quite emotional when they started talking about return to work, and it was the first time I broke down in front of the group when I'm not ready to even have this conversation. I'm still struggling. But then you have side conversations with the staff, and they explain to you in detail, like, we're not pushing you to come back. We're trying to give you the tools and the knowledge and the support. And you go, okay, calm down a little bit, grab a blanket. So then you learn that, and they do teach you that pretty early, and then that stress goes away throughout the program, and you feel confident when you leave that you're able to have those conversations with your home provider, with your employer, and all these things, and for me it worked out well. Couple challenges organizationally was, once I mentioned that I was ready to return to work, it took 3 months for me to be able to go through the doors of the office. That 3 months was horrible. I'm somebody that needs purpose, that needs to be pushed, needs to go to work. Now I was ready, and I was sidelined. That 3 months was not fun. I'm gonna use those words. They're not fun. That was my biggest challenge, but it has nothing to do with the program. It was an organizational challenge. It was, But once I got through the door, turned on that computer, got going again, smelled the smells of the office. Police stations have a certain smell. And then you start working, you're dealing with stuff, you're hearing stories. Slowly but surely everything's going well. Now I'm managing a team. We're trying to build the confidence in the members to do their job well. I'm a huge advocate for this program, huge advocate for the reintegration program. Things are going well. It's super cool to be back here as well. But yeah.
Well,
I don't know what else to tell you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. I know we're running out of time. Thank you for participating. Thank you for wonderful conversations, and the best is yet to come. Thank you.